you're producing skateboards that are cheaper than the ones in China. Sounds like you're doing.
That's incorrect. We are losing
expensive.
profits, sacrificing to make sure we can try and revive a dead industry and bring back the jobs that were lost. Because these scumbags, these companies, they don't care about the long term. They are addicted to short-term gains, and they think to themselves, because I've talked to these companies, and they say, look, just do the China board. You got Chinese slave labor, $10 a board. You can sell them for $70. You'll make $60 a board. And I say, then what happens to the shops? What happens to the factories in the United States? Why are we sending wood from Canada to China to make a board to send it back here? And they're like, because the Chinese will do it for 50 cents. And I'm like, I want people who are specialists who say, I can make a skateboard. I know how to take the wood. I know how to put it in the press. I can cut it and we can innovate. Instead, what ends up happening is all these shops go out of business. All of these factories go out of business and they struggle to keep up, all because these greedy short-term morons are like, I'm going to make $50 per board this year. And then 4 years, 5 years, 6 years later, there's no one to buy skateboards anymore. And now we're wondering why it is the biggest media outlets in skateboarding have collapsed, why pro skateboarders are now destitute. And it's because they sold off the industry to China, where all the garbage clothing is made. The brands have died. It's all centralized under one Walmart. No offense to Walmart. It's not Walmart specifically, but a corporate generic garbage brand. I don't want to live in that world. We need local factories that can compete, that are able to, and they can't compete with China. It's impossible. Americans have standards of living. We have rent we got to pay. We got healthcare bills, and the Chinese don't get any of that. So here we are saying, who cares if this Chinese labor at Foxconn, where these phones are made, are walking off a building committing mass suicide? That's the American consumer saying, we don't care. I care. And you know what? Sometimes there's got to be some hard asks and some big asks. I don't think these tariffs manifest. They may, but so what? I don't care. Force these companies back. The idea that the United States is dependent upon China for all of this, and it's only because the American consumer doesn't care that Chinese people commit suicide en masse at Foxconn Labs. That's the only reason. So when you've got 16 people crammed into in a dorm with 4 beds, and we're like, what do we care? It's cheap for us. Maybe we should be like, this is not the way the economy should be functioning, and we should bring jobs back here. The other principal issue is what we're basically doing is extracting the economy and giving it to our adversaries. All of this money being sent to China, even if it is 50 cents on the dollar or on the hour for these laborers, means that the money made by American citizens is sent to China to build up their economy while ours suffers and our industry is collapsing. So I'm with Trump on this one.
He tried it again. He tried it in 2020 also. His tariff situation in 2020 was in 2018. He did a 30 to 50% tariff on solar panels and washing machines, then 25% tariff on steel. This is worldwide, 10% on aluminum. And then the other countries struck back with their own. That was 2018.
It's pretty wild that in 2019, we were being told we had the best numbers of our lives.
Well, in 2019, he ended up printing and giving aid to the farmers about some 28 billion or something. 12 billion, increasing the aid to 28 billion, which is a third of the farmers' income in the United States to make up for the retaliatory tariffs from these other countries back on the United States. Eventually lifted the
trade war.
Yeah.
And what were the results in 2019? Record low unemployment, wages were growing, outpacing inflation.
I think that the deficit was going up, though.
That's true. And Trump said, as long as you're under-levered. Now, I'm not sure I completely agree, but Trump's position was be under-levered. Grow more than you're accruing debt, and you are seeing improvement in your economy.
And that's called supply-side economics, and that has been tried. And I'm the old guy here who can look backwards.
Art Laffer.
In those days. Yeah, it was Art Laffer came up with that. But explained on a napkin. But the simple fact is that really hasn't worked very well. And just spend money and somehow you'll get it back. It's like going to Las Vegas, saying I lost on the roulette wheel. I'm just going to keep doubling my bet every time. Pretty soon I'll win. And we are spending ourselves into oblivion. We don't have the money to spend on this stuff.
The philosophy of like you take a big loan to pay people to build a water mill to irrigate the crop so that you grow a bunch of food to pay back, to sell that to pay back the loan, and then you've got excess surplus makes a lot of sense. And he to scale that out domestically, I understand the philosophy. I don't know. The jury's out whether or not it would work. We could invest in our industry.
We need to.
I think that's the only way because you can't compete with slaves. You just cannot compete with slave labor.
You guys are talking like Keynesians. We need to do this. The Austrian, which Austrian economics is really the libertarian side of economics, and they hold that it's human nature is what you want to pay attention to. If you tax goods, guess what? They will do less of that particular good or that activity the more you tax it. And so the whole point is that don't make self-licking ice cream cones. We're not trying to make that system. Don't try to make a system that.
So how do we compete with slave labor?
Well, that is a great question, because the fact is we're dealing with countries with incredibly low standard of living, and there may be no true solution to that except you produce a good like the skateboards that are high quality, made in America, and you probably advertise that, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so they sell to people who care about quality, and the individuals have to care about that. I care about quality, so I only buy things that are higher quality, and I value it much more. But there's people who are entering the market, and they can't afford the higher quality.
The Chinese skateboards are of comparable quality. They are high end. They are all well made, and they're made by slaves.
One of the ways to deal with slave labor and stuff like that would actually be to get rid of things like unions and stuff in the U.S. because unions drive up the price. You get rid of your minimum wage laws, you get rid of your unions, and you get rid of the incentives.
Like a right to work law.
Well, I don't disagree. I'm not a big fan of unions as they are institutionalized and have weird laws all around them. The idea of collective bargaining, I get. I'm totally fine with that. Unions are these weird amalgams of quasi-governmental institutions.
Collective bargaining is basically, it's a bizarre concept. You cannot be a professional and collectively bargain because it's not a meritocracy, right? I laugh because Airline Pilots and Association.
It absolutely is.
These guys are they're on a scale, like a teacher. You're on a scale. How many years you've been there? It's not performance based. How many years have you been there? And therefore, that's your pay. That's not merit. That's just how long you've been sitting in a seat.
But real collective bargaining outside of unions is completely within market norms. If you have 100 employees and they're not getting paid well, and they go, I don't want to work here because I'm not getting paid enough, and they all walk out, you, the employer, go, wow, I'm not competitive, and they're going to go somewhere else because I'm not doing the job. You have to raise the rates. The problem is unions are weird quasi-governmental organizations that have, you can't strike now, but you can strike then, and then you get fined if you do it this way. And I'm like, that's nothing. That's not real. That's some weird garbage. But
they have laws written to make that work very well for them, for the union fat cats. Most of the money that your union dues don't go into your negotiations, it goes straight into politics.
Exactly.
Left-wing politics. That's what unions do. So that's not real collective bargaining, right? My idea is like if you've got a handful of employees and they're all like, guys, I just can't afford to work here anymore, so I'm leaving. Then the boss goes, we're seeing a bunch of people quit. Turnover's super high. What's happening? That's not collective. That's if everybody banded together and say, we're all going to work for this wage or we're all leaving.
Yeah, what's wrong with that?
And they can legally do that, but essentially it's a union. And
this is what I'm saying. In the early days, a bunch of employees being like, health, like secure, like safety, all of these things are really bad. I don't want to work here anymore. It's like, okay, let's all walk out. Let's not do this. Okay, fine. And the boss has to negotiate with them. I think that's fine. Unions, that's not like, I don't think it's fair to call that what unions are. Unions are weird quasi-governmental political machines that even the Teamsters, despite all the Teamsters wanting to vote for Trump, would not endorse the guy because they're political machines to steal money from workers. I despise how the government operates or how unions are operated within the government. But I love collective bargaining. I love it when people are like, we're going to work together. We're going to decide how we want to be here, how we want to be part of this machine. Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.